Hey Lions faithful, welcome back to Lions News Fan Report, your home for breaking news, insider updates, and everything happening with our beloved team. Today I've got something that's going to completely reshape how you think about our offensive line future. And trust me, this goes way deeper than what you're seeing on the surface. The decisions being made right now in Allen Park aren't just about winning these final games. They're about something much bigger, something that could determine whether we're contenders for years to come or if we're heading toward a crisis that nobody's talking about yet. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the next few weeks might be the most critical period for one particular player's entire career in Honolulu Blue, and why that matters more than you think for our championship aspirations. The Lions organization is at a crossroads right now. We're fighting tooth and nail for a playoff spot, needing to win out and get help from teams playing the Bears and Packers, and every single snap matters. But here's where it gets interesting. While everyone's focused on our playoff push, there's a situation developing quietly in the background that has massive implications for next season and beyond. I'm talking about a player who was supposed to be part of our long-term solution, someone we invested a fourth-round pick in, someone who came here with raw talent and upside that had the coaching staff excited. But sometimes, in this league, talent isn't enough. Sometimes the timing doesn't work out. Sometimes a player's development timeline doesn't match up with a team's championship window, and when that happens, difficult decisions have to be made. Before I dive into who I'm talking about and what's really going on, let me give you some context about how roster construction works in today's NFL. Teams operate with limited resources, limited roster spots, and limited patience when it comes to player development, especially at critical positions. When you draft an offensive tackle in the fourth round, you're making a calculated bet. You're betting that with proper coaching, practice time, and game experience, that player will develop into either a reliable starter or, at minimum, a quality backup who can step in without the entire offense collapsing. But what happens when that development doesn't materialize? What happens when injuries derail progress? What happens when a player spends his entire rookie season as a healthy scratch, then barely sees the field in year two? That's when teams start having conversations that fans don't always hear about. That's when front office personnel start evaluating whether it makes sense to continue investing time and resources into a player, or whether it's time to cut bait and move in a different direction. And that brings me to Giovanni Manu, the tackle from the University of British Columbia, who was designated to return from injured reserve this week, giving the organization 21 days to either activate him or place him back on IR for the remainder of the season. Now, on the surface, this sounds like good news, right? A young player getting healthy, potentially available to help us down the stretch. But when you dig into what Dan Campbell said to reporters on Wednesday, when you really listen to the words he chose and the tone he used, a very different picture emerges. Campbell talked about how Manu desperately needs reps, how he needs to get out there against Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson in practice, how he can't get enough work. And then came the kicker, the statement that should have every Lions fan paying attention. Campbell essentially said that if they're able to use Manu this year, that's a bonus. But really, it's about setting him up better for next year's training camp. Let that sink in for a second. We're in the middle of a playoff race, fighting for our postseason lives, and the head coach is already conceding that a player designated to return from IR probably won't contribute this season. That's not normal coach speak. That's not typical optimism about a player's recovery. That's reality setting in, and it's not a pretty reality for Manu. Here's what we know about his Lions career so far, and it's not encouraging. He spent his entire rookie season in 2024 as a healthy scratch. Every single game he was inactive. Then this season, he's appeared in just 4 games total and made 1 start, filling in for an injured Taylor Decker in Week 5 against the Bengals. And that start didn't go well at all. According to Pro Football Focus, Manu posted a 42.2 overall grade and allowed 2 sacks on 28 pass-blocking snaps. Those are rough numbers, the kind of numbers that make coaches nervous about putting you back out there. But here's where the situation gets really complicated and where we start getting into speculation territory about his future in Detroit. Manu couldn't build on even the small positives from that Cincinnati game because he got injured during practice a few weeks later, and that injury has kept him out for 2 months. 2 months of lost development time, 2 months of falling further behind in his progress, 2 months of the coaching staff not being able to evaluate whether he's improving or stagnating. And now we're approaching the midway point of his rookie contract. In the NFL, rookie contracts for fourth-round picks are 4 years, which means Manu has already burned through nearly half of his time before the Lions have to make a decision on a fifth-year option or extension. Except there won't be a fifth-year option because that only applies to first-round picks, which means the Lions will need to decide after year 3 whether to extend him or let him walk. But here's the most critical piece of information that changes everything about this situation. Taylor Decker, our starting left tackle, recently told reporters that he's considering retirement this offseason. Decker's been an absolute rock for us, a cornerstone of our offensive line, and if he hangs up his cleats, we've got a massive hole to fill at one of the most important positions in football. You'd think that would be great news for Manu, right? Opportunity knocking, a clear path to becoming the starter. Except Campbell's comments suggest that's not how they're viewing this situation. When your head coach is talking about a player like Manu is someone who just needs practice reps to maybe, possibly, hopefully, be ready for next year's training camp. That's not someone they're envisioning as their starting left tackle if Decker retires. That's someone they're still trying to figure out if he belongs on the roster at all. And that's where the speculation about Manu potentially being out of Detroit comes into play. Let's think about this logically. The Lions are in championship or bust mode. Our defense is elite. Our offense has weapons all over the field, and we've got a head coach who knows how to win. But championship windows don't stay open forever. And when you're operating in that window, you cannot afford to have question marks at critical positions. If Decker retires and the Lions don't have confidence that Manu can be the answer, they'll need to address left tackle this offseason, either through the draft, free agency, or a trade. And if they do that, where does that leave Manu? Best case scenario, he becomes the backup, continuing to get limited reps and limited opportunities to prove himself. Worst case scenario, the organization decides to cut their losses and move on entirely, either releasing him or trading him to a team willing to take a chance on a developmental project. I know that sounds harsh, and believe me, I want every player we draft to succeed and become a cornerstone of this franchise, but we have to be realistic about where things stand. Manu has shown very little in his time here. Injuries have derailed his development, and the coaching staff's comments suggest they're not counting on him to be part of the solution moving forward. The practice window he's been given is essentially a last-chance evaluation period. If he looks good in practice over the next few weeks, if he shows significant improvement, if he demonstrates that he can hold his own against our defensive front, then maybe, just maybe, he buys himself more time in Detroit. But if he continues to struggle, if the same issues that plagued him in that Cincinnati start are still there, if he looks overwhelmed by the speed and complexity of NFL defenses, then I think we're looking at a situation where the Lions will strongly consider moving on this offseason. And here's why that decision, while potentially disappointing, might actually be the right move for both parties. Manu needs a situation where he can get consistent reps, where he's not under the immense pressure of needing to be ready to start for a championship contender. Maybe a rebuild team with less expectations and more patience would be a better fit for his development curve. And the Lions need certainty at left tackle, especially if Decker retires. They need someone who's proven they can handle the position at a high level, not someone who's still trying to figure out the basics. Look, I'm an optimist by nature, and I always want to see our guys succeed. I'm rooting for Manu to turn this around, to have a great few weeks of practice, to show that he's been working hard during his rehab and come back stronger than before. But I also understand the business side of football, and right now, the business side isn't looking favorable for his long-term future here. The Lions invested a fourth-round pick in him, but that's a sunk cost at this point. You can't keep a player on the roster just because you drafted him. You have to make decisions based on current ability, future projection, and how they fit into your championship timeline. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Manu deserves more time to develop in Detroit, or is it time for both sides to move on? If Decker retires, would you feel comfortable with Manu as the starter, or do you think we need to bring in a veteran or draft someone early? And if we do move on from Manu, where do you think we should look to address the tackle position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is a conversation we need to be having as fans. Looking at everything objectively, the situation with Giovanni Manu represents one of those difficult realities of roster management in the NFL. The talent is there somewhere, the potential exists, but the development timeline hasn't aligned with the team's championship window, and injuries have made evaluation nearly impossible. The Lions are approaching a moment of truth, not just with Manu, but with how they construct their offensive line for the future. If he can't show significant progress in the coming weeks, I fully expect the organization to explore other options at tackle this offseason, which would likely mean Manu's time in Detroit comes to an end. It's not the outcome any of us wanted when he was drafted, but it might be the reality we're facing. Make sure you subscribe to Lions News Fan Report and hit that notification bell so you never miss our breaking news coverage and in-depth analysis. We're here every day bringing you the latest updates, insider information, and the honest conversations that matter most to Lions fans. If you found this video valuable, smash that like button and share it with your fellow Lions faithful. Let's keep this discussion going, and as always, one. Pride.